Are you wondering what it's like to leave Australia during 2021? I mean, come on. There's practically no COVID in Australia. Why would I want to go to Los Angeles where there was roughly 50,000 cases a day in January 2021 and have such a different experience? That's what I was thinking at that point in time. And I was possibly planning on staying in Australia until 2022, just riding things out in the bubble that was Fortress Australia. But I had a family event to attend, and it was a really important one, and things are getting better.
That's it, folks. Just about 1 year ago and 8 months, arrived in Sydney from the States, and now I'm going right back. So just waiting for my flight to board here shortly, taking Delta from Sydney to LAX. And yeah, 13 and a half hours, here we go.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning back in here to the Don't Wanna Explore channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Brian, and I'm sure you guys clicked on the video here today because maybe you're in Australia yourselves and you're thinking about coming back to the United States. Maybe you know somebody who might be in that situation, or maybe you're just really interested to hear what it was like to be living in Australia during the pandemic and now finally make a decision as to when was the right time to make the move and come back to the United States. So we're gonna dive into 4 topics today, which I hope are really educational for you all out there, or provide some more clarity as to how things are on the ground. So the first thing I want to talk about is basically how things were logistically from leaving Australia. Secondly, we're gonna jump into the journey, actually the flights from Sydney to LAX, LAX to New York. Thirdly, we'll jump in what it's like after you land here as far as the quarantine and all that goes. And the fourth thing I want to talk about is, especially to those of you out there watching right now who might be thinking about leaving, that mentality aspect of things. Looking at yourself, looking at the news, looking at lifestyle there, and you're like, wow, it's pretty good. We're on an island, things are closed off, COVID practically doesn't exist. And looking at whatever state might be coming back here in the US or the US as a whole, and be like, wow, it is far, far worse there. Do I really want to go back? So we'll jump into those 4 topics today. I will put them down below in chapters so you guys can jump to whichever one suits you best. Hopefully you guys enjoy the whole video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. That helps so much. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do that as well. So let's jump into it. So when I finally decided to make the jump and come back to the States, there are a bunch of different things you have to now do that you did not have to do prior to the pandemic. So we're going to talk about those 3 items right now. So if you are planning on going back to Australia, whether you're a permanent resident or whether you are a temporary resident there, or on a temporary visa, you have to get an exemption. So that basically after you leave, you can get back into Australia. For myself, I was not planning on going back, so I did not need the exemption, so I did not have to file that paperwork with the immigration office. If you do, I'll put the link down below. Feel free to go read those instructions, and please follow them carefully, because if you don't get the exemption, you will not be allowed to leave the country. The second thing you have to do is get a negative COVID test, and that is being policed or regulated by the airlines, whichever airline you choose to fly. For myself, that was Delta. So for doing that, I was looking it up, wasn't really sure where to go, and also timeline is a huge thing. So I basically went on Facebook to the Americans in Sydney chat, asked for the people what they had luck with, and I was pushed towards Foresight. So the number 4 and then CYTE.com.
Yeah, so just got out from going to one of the Foresight locations here in Sydney, Australia to do the mandatory COVID-19 test.
Basically, you have to get your negative test within 72 hours of your flight. So my flight was on Monday. I could have went Friday. I chose to go Saturday. So basically, the day before you go online to their website, you basically check that you want the travel form is what you're going for, fill it all out, pay the $190 AUD for your test, make it time for the next day. Then I showed up, wore a mask, went inside. There was no line, and I basically got both noses swabbed as well as my throat. They put it in a little tube, and they told me I get it in 12 hours. In 12 hours, I checked my email, and I had the negative test results with their form, with my background information, PCR test negative, which is great. Moving on from there, when I got to the airport, they checked whether I had the travel exemption or not. I told them I was just going home to the States, so I didn't need it. They basically made sure that I had that negative COVID test. And then 3, when I got to check my bags in, they let me know that because I was going to Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles looked for a negative COVID attestation form. So they informed me that I had to fill that out 24 hours before I arrived, which was great because I was going to be on a long flight, so I wouldn't arrive till the next day. So I quickly jumped on the Wi-Fi at the airport, went to the URL that they gave me, and filled that out, basically my background information. I tested that I was negative, checked that off, and good to go. Chapter 2. So the journey itself. So on the airline was absolutely amazing because I was on a big jet, as you can imagine, flying from Sydney International to LAX, which could fit usually 300 to 400 people, but there were literally 40 people on the flight. It was amazing. So moving on from there, I then had a quick stopover with family, dropped my stuff in LA. And if you were doing a stopover, this part's probably important to you as well. I then jumped on a domestic flight from LAX to NYC, and that flight was absolutely packed shoulder to shoulder. So for the other flight, I had a double mask and thought about wearing the visor. I did not because it was really empty. For this flight, I put on the visor, but I thought I could barely breathe. Didn't really feel too well. It was kind of fogging up. So I chose basically to go ball cap, hood up, double mask, drink a bunch of water, and really not move much during the flight. Now to chapter 3, arriving in New York. So at that point in time in late May 2021, the CDC was advising that basically if you were going to get tested and you were negative, you should stay home for 7 days. If you didn't get tested, it'd be 10 days. Because I have family members who basically were fully vaccinated, and one of them had COVID prior, they were not worried about having me come stay with them. I decided to go get one of my vaccine shots the first day right away to get that on my system, and then basically decided to kind of lay low and not really go out in the community during the first 7 to 10 days, as well as wearing a mask for the first 7 days in my house to be extra careful and not to spread anything if I was in fact positive. Fast forward from there, before the family event that I came home for, the big wedding, I decided to get tested with a rapid test and I was negative. So that made me feel better as far as me doing my part. And then since then, I actually have gotten my second jab. So my personal choices, up to you what you want to do. Basically coming from Australia where there's practically no COVID to the US where as of last week, there were still 26,000 cases on average per day. I decided to go that route as far as wearing the mask, getting a negative COVID test eventually, and getting the full vaccine. It's completely up to you what you want to do, but again, for me, it felt like I was doing the part for myself as the part for the community as well, basically me and for we, to kind of do my part in this whole pandemic moving forward. As well, I've been here for about a month, and I could tell that people are pretty much more so at ease. Again, they had much higher rates during the beginning of the pandemic as well as earlier this past winter, earlier this year. So they're pretty much comfortable with it. Some places still require a mask, some places don't if you're vaccinated. But yeah, it really depends as far as that goes. So they're really riding on the success of the vaccination has really pushed things forward. Jumping into chapter 4, kind of the mentality. Again, if you're watching this from Australia, thinking about going back to the States soon, obviously depends what part of the country you're going to, as different states are kind of recovering faster than others. Mostly hinged on how many people are vaccinated or not as far as the numbers go. But again, for myself, leaving Australia, Fortress Australia, where there's practically no COVID, and coming back here to the States, again, I feel better on getting vaccinated and still moving forward. I think I might for a while avoid big crowded places and wear masks when I feel that it's appropriate for myself as well as for others. But it's really up to you. What I will say to those people who are kind of afraid to still come back, being that again, COVID is still better over in Australia, is that I think the vaccine was the X factor, the variable in pushing things forward. Obviously, the pandemic's nowhere near towards the end. It's still out there in a lot of other countries in the world, and there's new variants. Again, those are your decisions, what you believe about that and how you want to take it. But for me personally, having the opportunity to get a vaccine and try to get back to more of a normal life here in the States was the route that I decided to take. Try to get this to you guys quick today. Hopefully it was informative. Again, if you guys liked the video today, please smash the like button. Also subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.